So
That's a tough
this
deal.
leads us to another good government point, right? Because earlier this week, Jen Psaki announced that there was going to be new requirements for international travel in the United States,
Yep.
right? So people flying in from the United States, excuse me, and I believe that I have a clip for this. Oh shit, I forgot to send you clips.
Oh, that's what the technical issues with the pre-show kind of threw
Yes,
everything
yeah.
off this morning.
I do have a clip for this somewhere. But sorry, the new policy in traveling internationally is if you are flying into the United States, you have to have either a vaccine passport, right, or proof of a negative test within 24 hours of departure, and also proof of purchase of another test to take once you've arrived in the United States.
That's interesting.
Yes.
That proof of purchase part for
Proof
the
of
next one
purchase, yeah,
is
you have to
very
have,
interesting. You remember when proof of purchase was like a cereal box thing growing up? You
Yeah.
send in your proof of purchase and you'll get this cheap little plastic toy from China.
Contact tracing. Regarding contact tracing for international travel, this was on the 20th. The CDC will order airlines to collect comprehensive contact information for people who are coming into the United States, and
And
that's
you know
how they're going to.
as far as like government
Comprehensive is
concerned in that industry, it's kind of weird how there is so much involvement with the federal government in all the airline industries because it's run through the FAA, which is a federal agency.
Yeah.
How they kind of get to set the vast majority of the regulations through that entire industry.
The
So when
airlines just
something,
have to bend to it.
yeah, and they just do it because without the federal government, I'm fairly sure that without the subsidies they get from the federal government, we would not have the airline system that we have now. It's very interesting.
So from what I understand, I've heard a couple of different accounts, but I've also heard kind of once you get through security, people don't really give a shit. Like once you're at the gates, you know, as far as masks go, I mean, like once you get into the actual gate and terminals and stuff like that, people don't really give a shit. It's kind of whatever, especially if you like have a drink or something like that. That's always the way to cheat it, you know,
Yeah.
just get a drink, you know, and just hold your drink like which is, it feels dumb. Like
Yeah.
this is a way to work
To get
around to get
around
your
it.
freedom, you know?
The only place it doesn't work is in Australia camps.
And that's
In the quarantine camps, you can't get away with that.
No.
You got a mask down.
But at
sit,
least
put
they're
your mask
open
up.
air, you know.
Exactly.
Or unless he's going to San Francisco,
Yep.
then also you don't have to do that either. That's one of the division points that I have, because now I'm just going to keep track almost of like all of the weird divisional things that happened over the 2 weeks. So I have
Yeah.
a list of like, let's see.
Oh, Carolina.
1, 2, 3, 4,
Lexi Cayo out
5.
there saying also a possible trip to Punta Cana for her dad's 70th birthday.
So-
there's a big thing going there, and
Which is going to,
Yep.
whatever they're requiring in Ecuador, you're going to have to do there. And
Yep.
then if it's not a vaccine, you know,
Yeah.
because they may or may not, I don't know much about the Ecuadorian government or really anything at all. So I don't know how lenient they are, how whatever. But
Oh, yeah.
if they do or do not have a testing
regiment
like
if you will.
loophole is what I'm thinking,
Yeah.
but that's not option.
Yeah, and Punta Cana's
then-
in the DR, by the way. That's where we're looking at going.
Oh,
over
okay.
the DR.
I just
Dominican
assumed
Republic.
Republic. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Obviously, my South
Geography,
American
baby.
geography is not good. So,
Oh, Paul's here. I love Paul.
shout out.
He said feels dumb question mark. And I don't remember exactly what we were talking about at that point for the reference there, but I'm sure we'll get back around to it.
Oh, to be talking about ways to work around to get your freedoms
Oh,
in
yeah,
an
yeah,
airport.
yeah.
You know, it feels dumb to be
Finding
having
loopholes
to
and-
do that. You
Yeah.
know, that's one of the things that I was talking to my uncle about as we were leaving. He's talking about, you know, the only way that we're going to get out of this is if people decide they're going to get vaccinated and wear their masks when they're, you know, at least when they're in confined places and things like that. So because people my age remember polio, he said, and they remember people who had just got back from World War II that had fought for these freedoms, you know, having things stamped
Yeah.
on their door telling them that they could not leave their house if they weren't going to get the, you know,
Yeah,
this vaccine
polio
for
vaccine.
polio. So then I started to look into polio, right? So
Oh boy. Buckle up, baby.
so right, and I'm not going to argue history because it's neither here nor there. But polio, there is obviously not COVID, right?
yeah.
I don't know what the death rate of COVID was, but the rate at which it fucking maimed people and disabled them was pretty absurd, especially
Polio?
yeah,
Yeah.
especially children, right?
Yes.
So that's a huge factor in this. Polio largely affected children. COVID largely does not affect children.
Yeah.
And that's not me being like, well, kids are the only thing that matters. But kids can't generally make their own decisions, right?
Yeah.
Adults can't have decision-making skills. They
Yeah.
have legal autonomy. They have bodily autonomy.
why
They
they're
can do what
fundamentally
they want.
different.
They have different freedoms than a child does, right?
Yeah.
So I think there's a difference there when you're talking about a series of population of children that are being disabled permanently because adults are choosing to do one thing or another. And I don't know if that may be splitting hairs. I don't know, because he said, he was like, I understand the discussion of like people's freedoms and stuff like that. And that's when he started talking about polio. And he said, but the people who had just fought for these freedoms now are being kept in their own homes. And I understand it, right?
Yeah.
And I think the more I've thought about this, 'cause it was on like Wednesday, I think, the more I've thought about this, I think I think it may be one of those impasses that we were talking about. That like this is just a fundamental difference of like this.
Yeah.
The freedom to choose means more to me than this, because I think, and like we talked about last time, to me, the embracement of freedom is not safe. To be free is to understand and recognize you are not safe all of the time. You need to do what you can to mitigate danger and ensure your own safety within bounds of your freedom and other people's freedoms, and make sure things are good, right?
Yep. Mitigate risk. Life's all about mitigating risk.
And that, I think, like I said, I think it just may be one of those impasses that like this matters more to me, that you need to give people the freedom to choose and provide them with factual, true information, subdivision, sans politics, sans division, sans insanity, so they can know what is happening and make their own decisions. And if it's the right thing, then they're going to do, if it mitigates their risk, they're going to do it.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't, then they're not going to do it.
Yeah,
But
that's
you
kind of like the
can't-
approach tactic that I was just talking about. It's
Right.
Like, if that was the approach of like, hey, everybody in the
Right,
populace, this
right.
is how we know that you can mitigate your risk. Go out and make good decisions, people. Be free, be great. Here's all the info. We're all doing this because we're the government. We believe this. We're gonna step behind our own deal, and we're gonna be right there on the front lines taking this stuff. Please try to follow our
guidance.
not guidance, but like take this, look at the path
Example.
we're walking. Yeah, take our example. Thank
Yeah.
you. And so that's the struggle.
Right. Because what you can't do is call yourself a free country and then give people false choices and censored information to try and lead them down the pathway that you want to.
Yeah.
That's not free. You cannot hold those two things at the same time. That's bullshit. That is the definition of cognitive dissonance. You
Yeah.
cannot call yourself free while providing people false choices and limited information.
Yep.
You can't do it. That's not you must acknowledge that we are no longer a free populace if that is what the government is choosing to do, and that's what you're okay with doing. We're no longer a free populace. We are now guided by our government in the direction that they want, like a herd of cattle. Some are going to get away and do their own thing, and fuck them. If we have a herd of 5,000 and we lose 20 on the way, that's just the cost of doing business. Some of the calves get trampled on the way there. It is what it is. That is not how this should go. This country is supposed to be free range, right?
Free range,
yeah,
baby.
That's not. Yeah.
You ever seen that movie Open Range
Yes.
with Kevin Costner and crap.
Cartoon movie?
No.
Then
It's a cowboy movie. Kevin Costner. I
Oh,
want
no.
to say. Robert Duvall. Robert Duvall?
Oh,
Probably.
okay.
Great cowboy movie. But I like what Paul asked, whose truth when we're talking about this. And like we were talking, I think probably before you jumped in here, Paul, about that kind of being the problem is when the institutions and the agencies have eroded their social credit score, their trust. When people don't trust an institution or an agency, when they say here is the truth, and then you try to look at the data behind it, what's driving this stuff, if you can't trust at the end of the day that this is factually correct, because they're obviously hiding things, or they're omitting things, or they're purposely not reporting on something,
Doubling back on things.
yeah, like it's that trust is infringed upon. And then when somebody says, because we're in the area of post-truth,
Right.
We've been there since before COVID. I think we've known this for a long time. Personal truth has been a thing for longer than COVID has. And so when people start talking about truth and facts, if you will, it's 50-50 whether that actually is the case. I mean, 50-50 might be a little generous, but so that's like whose truth is the problem. That is exactly the problem is.
Right.
Whose truth are you picking that up on? Are you only watching ONN and getting all of your information from, well, just to just categorize everything, right-wing sources? That's going to be your truth. That's the truth you're getting.
Right.
If you only watch MSNBC and CNN, you're getting that version of it. And then depending on which channels or which group you're listening to get your information, they have various other sources that they're pulling from that are backing up their truth. And that is the problem. We don't know who to trust anymore.
Right.
And do you just blindly trust the government? I would doubt that's a good idea. But I did want to bring up something that you were talking about earlier about
Yes.
polio and how essentially everybody got the polio vaccine, and it was a great idea that everybody did.
Yes.
Like, if, when the mandates came out, it is a fundamentally different disease, the fundamentally different virus. And we use in contemporary times, basically most people's thing is like, well, if this was airborne Ebola,
Right.
there would be no question. Every person out there
I would
that
definitely be
hadn't
doing it.
already died from airborne Ebola would already have this shit, and there would be no questions. Nobody would be talking about something. But with the problems and trust we've had, looking at the data we have and looking at what this thing is, there's a lot more room for that risk mitigation.
Right.
But that choice of mitigating our own risk is being removed from us every day, further and further and further.
And I am sympathetic to the argument that, because it crosses a very gray area that we've talked about a lot, of your freedoms extend up until the point that you are infringing on other people's freedoms, right? And if your choice to do something is putting somebody else in danger, right? I recognize that it's a gray area, but that's also where you talk about kind of the level of risk. You know what I'm saying? That's why it's important to provide, and that's why I was trying to I try and stray away from the term truth, right? Because it can go back and forth. This is my truth, people say. That's why I'm saying factual information. Provide people with numbers so that they know this is the rate at which people are getting COVID. If you are obese, this is the rate at which you're likely more to get it. If you have these other things, these increase your risk factor X percent. This makes it's this percent, it's this percent. Give people all of the information. Once the vaccine starts to come down, people are getting it. Listen, we're having breakthrough cases. It may be because people are hesitant to get it. It might be because it's evolving for one reason or another. But now we're at the point where this is the amount of breakthrough cases. So it's better if you get it, because it will help us get less breakthrough cases. It will help us whatever. But you need to just be providing all of the information so that you can make your own decision. Because I feel very strongly that if that had been done from the beginning, there would be much less concern here, much less division. There is going to continue to be people who don't believe you, who sow division and sow misinformation from the very beginning. That is definitely going to happen.
Yeah.
But if you are honest from the beginning, you know what I'm saying? You maintain that social, and I don't use the term social credit because that's very China, that's very communist.
It is.
Your legitimacy. You maintain your legitimacy. And if you lie consistently, like the Trump administration did, right? And now, like the same people who existed in that administration that have been carried over, right? So they
still continue to.
The Biden administration didn't get the reset that they were hoping for by maintaining Anthony Fauci, who had lied the most the whole time.
Yeah, right.
That's great. You removed the guy from the CDC who pretty much did the right thing, from what I understand, was a far less divisive figure than Anthony Fauci was. So,
what was his name?
But it was he had no hair and a white beard and glasses.
Yeah.
He
looked. Yeah. God, what was his name?
And he has since come out and been like, "Yo, we fucked up. Like we did some things that were not correct."
Yeah. Redfield.
Yes,
Redfield.
thank you. But instead, they have hung their hat on Anthony Fauci and said, "We will never fire Anthony Fauci. We will not do it." Even after he's been shown to perjure himself in front of Congress, he's been found to be lying numerous times. We found emails in his actual accounts that have PDFs of whatever the fuck that are named. You know what I'm talking about?
Research. Oh my God.
Gain of function
research.
PDF. That's the name of the PDF. And then he's saying, "No, we never did that."
Not to mention reading Peter Daszak's 2020 opinion article at The Guardian talking about this too.
It just doesn't.
He's the dude that's doing it, and
They
he's saying,
didn't-
"Yeah, this is what we're doing."
They did not get the reset that they needed, you know,
Mm-hmm.
or that they could have had if they. Again, I understand maybe the concern of,
Mm-hmm.
well, if we bring in somebody else, then maybe he doesn't have the legitimacy. But the dude
Yeah.
you have has already lost all
All of it.
legitimacy. So
He should have lost it in the '80s.
yeah,
He should have never. He should have been fired after everything was done in the '80s with
he-
the AIDS problem.
he didn't gain anybody. He didn't gain any by a new administration saying, no, we believe you.
Yeah.
Like that didn't, because